Good morning student. Today I teach you structure of flower. All of you know flower is the structural unit of sexual reproduction in plant. Okay, what I say, structural unit of sexual reproduction in plant. So we can see in the structure of a flowers there are four whorl. One is the calyx, next one is the corolla, and then androecium and gynoecium. The four whorl we can see in the flower, and as I explain you, calyx, then corolla, then androecium, then gynoecium. So from where we go? We go from outside to inside of the flower. So in this way they are arranged. We can divide these whorls into two parts. One is the essential whorls and another one is the accessory whorl. In essential whorls we can consist androecium and gynoecium. Why we call them essential whorl? Because they take part in the process of a reproduction. They play a very important role in the process of reproduction. Because of that we can say it is the essential whorl. And what is the what we include in the accessory whorl? We can include calyx and corolla. And what is their function? They provide the protection to the flower. Just you can see in this diagram, we can find out the androecium and gynoecium. That is a place in between the inside of the flower, and calyx and corolla, that is the protective part, so they are present outside of the flower. Okay. Now first of all I explain you androecium. Androecium, the member of androecium is also known as a stamen, and this stamen is made up of a two part. Stamen is made up of two parts. First one is the anther and second one is the filament. This is the anther portion. So stamen is made up of a two part. One is the anther, second one is the filament, and second one is the gynoecium. If we can see the structure of gynoecium, just you can see in the flower, first one is the stigma. This is the stigma. And this one, the elongated part which is connected with the stigma, that is known as the style. And the style is connected to the base of the flower. What we call this one? Ovary. So the member of a gynoecium is known as a carpel. What word you are using here? Carpel. Just like the member of androecium is known as a stamen. Like that, the member of a gynoecium is known as a carpel. In stamen, which two parts are present? Anther and filament. And in gynoecium means carpel, which members are present? Stigma, style and ovary. Okay. Like that, the member of a calyx, which is the green part and present the outer side of flower, that is known as the calyx. So the member of a calyx is known as a sepals. What we call? Sepals. And the members of a corolla is known as the colorful part of the flower is known as corolla. Okay. And the member of a corolla is known as a petals. And why they are colorful? We can see the different type of a flower. In that flower, they have a different color of a corolla or a petals. So the color is attract the insect, and due to that the process of pollination is occurs. Okay, because of that corollas have or petals have a different colors. Now we can see the process of a pollination in plant. By the flower, all of you see, this is the pedicel. What is this? This is the pedicel. Pedicel means the portion by which the flower is attached, that portion is known as the pedicel. And if the pedicel is present in the flower, so that flower is known as pedicellate flower. And after that you can see this type of a fiber like structure attached with the pedicel. This is the epicalyx, and after the epicalyx what we can see? Calyx, and each calyx is known as a sepal. After that you can see the colorful part of the flower. This colorful part of the flower is known as a corolla, and all these are the member of a corolla, means we can call them a petals. Okay, inside of that what we can see? We can see this is the stigma, the reddish colors you can see here. This is the stigma, and this stigma is attached with this elongated portion. This elongated portion is known as the style, and what you can see? This is attached to the base, which is a solen. So this solen portion is known as a ovary. Understood? And you can see here with this style, some fibrous like filament is present here. So this fibrous like structure is known as a anther. Yellow portion is seen by you, that is the anther, and anther is attached with a style by the filament. Understood? So this is the structure of flower. When you can dissect this ovary, so inside of this ovary you can find out the embryo sac. In this embryo sac undergoes the process of a meiosis. Which cell division occurs here? Meiosis. By the process of a meiosis, the egg cell is formed. What I explain you? Inside the ovary, embryo sac is present, and embryo sac undergoes the division of meiosis. After the division of meiosis, egg cell is formed. Same in the process of anther. In anther, pollen grains are present. This yellow structure all of you see here, that is the pollen grain. Okay, this pollen grains also goes meiosis cell division, and by the meiosis cell division they form the male gamete. Is that clear to everyone? Okay, now we can see the process of a pollination. Our next topic is a pollination. So we know the pollination is two types. Which are they? One is the self pollination, and another one is the cross pollination. What is the meaning of self pollination? If these two flowers, this one and this one, both flowers are born on a same plant, so the anther of these flower is transferred to the, and these flower which is born to the same plant, and both are belong to the same species because both born in a same plant. Okay, so the anther, what is the pollination? First of all I explain you what is the pollination. Transfers of a pollen grain from anther to stigma. Okay, you know stigma. Okay, so when the pollen grain is transferred from anther to stigma, that process is known as a pollination. So in a self pollination, these both flowers are born in the same plant. So as they are mature, the anther is transferred from into the same stigma or maybe in the another flower, but both are present in the same plant. Okay, and what is the means of cross pollination? Second one is the cross pollination. In cross pollinations, what we can see? Maybe this flower is born in one plant and this is in another plant. After that, the anther is transferred. The pollen grain of this anther is transferred to the another flower that is born in another plant. So that is known as the cross pollination. But it is very necessary both are belong to the same species. Okay, the pollen grain of rose is not transferred to the pollen stigma of a hibiscus plant or hibiscus flower. So we can see the process of a pollination, and how many types? Two types, self pollination and cross pollination. Now I can explain you the process of a fertilization in plant. Okay, so what I explain you? First of all I explain you the flower is the structural unit of sexual reproduction. So what's the means of that? the reproduction process is carries on by the flower. Structure of flower, and I explain you which one is the essential whorl, which one is the accessory whorl. In essential whorl what we can see, androcium and gynocium. Why they are essential? Because they are participate in the process of a reproduction, and accessory whorl do the protection of a flower. Okay, we all study in that process, and you know about that. The member of the androcium is known as the stamen. In the stamen, what you can find out? You can find two parts, filament and anther. And in gynocium, the member of a gynocium is known as a carpel, and carpel is made up of a stigma, style and ovary. Now we can see the sexual reproduction in a plant, and all of you know the flower is the structural unit of sexual reproduction in plant. So now I explain you how the process of a fertilization is occurs, and the question is asked in your exams, explain the double fertilization in a plant. Okay, so I explain you how the process of a double fertilization is occurs. What we can see, by the process of a pollination, we know the process of a pollination is carried out by the two factor or two agent, biotic agent and abiotic agent. So bio, you know the living. So biotic agent, which are the biotic agent? Birds and insect. And abiotic agent means by the water and winds. So as the process of pollination is carried out, means the pollen grain is transferred from anther to stigma. So in this process what happen? The stigma become a very sticky, and as they become a very sticky, why? Because by the process of a pollination, the pollen grain are landed over the stigma. As the pollen grain is landed over the stigma become very sticky. And what is the second change is carried out? The germinations of a pollen grain is a start. As the germination process is a start, so what happen? The pollen tube is a form from inside the style and reaches to the which part? Ovary part. And in this process, the male gamete which are present inside the pollen grain, they are also enter through this pollen tube. Okay. So in the next structure, what you can see, these male gamete, these are the male gamete. Okay. Male gamete. How many male gametes are here? Two male gametes. So both the male gametes are reaches to the ovaries. So inside the ovaries, what I explain you, ovules are present. Inside the ovules, what is there? Embryo sac. Okay, what is there? Embryo sac. And in embryo sac, what is present? Egg cell. What is present? Egg cell. So in egg cell, which division is carries out? Meiosis. By the process of a meiosis, the embryo cell, in embryo sac, the three cell is a form. The one cell is known as the egg cell, and remaining two cell is known as the polar nuclei. Okay. In the first conditions, what happened? The male gamete enter into the ovary, and as they are enter into the ovary, they fuse with the egg cell. So this is the first fertilization. Male gamete fuse with egg cell. As they fuse with egg cell, so what they form? They form the zygote. Okay. And in second fertilization, the second male gamete fuse with the polar nuclei, and when they are fused with the polar nuclei, they form the endosperm. Okay. So how many times the fertilization is occurred? Two times. First, the male gamete is fused with egg cell, and in the second time, the male gamete is fused with a polar nuclei. So two times the process of fertilization is occurs. Because of that, what we call them a double fertilization. I think all of you understood. Okay. So this is the process of a double fertilization, so that is occurs in a plant. And after that, what we can see, the zygote is turned into the embryo. This ovule which is present here, that ovule is after the process of a fertilization converted into the seed, and this ovary, you can see this is the ovary. Okay. So this ovary is converted into the fruit. Okay. So ovules converted into the seed and ovary converted into the fruit. And after that, as the process of a germination occurs, so these embryo means that is the baby plant. That baby plant take their nutrition from the endosperm and germinate and form the plantlets. Thank you now.